afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
So students are joining with the delay. Are you able to see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. In the last few classes, we were discussing about parametric approach, basically how parametric approach will help us to do some classification. That was the major focus, considering Bayes theorem, right? So Bayes theorem is one of the, what happened? Are you able to see my slide? Hello?
So I can see your desktop.
It is lost. I don't know how. Anyway, I'll just reopen it. So I was talking about Bayes theorem as a concern, like in the subject, we have a topic on Bayes theorem, right? These things generally will come under parametric decision making, right? Yeah. Shantanu, you have some question? Somebody asked some question. Any clarification? Yeah. So I was just saying that, so we have parametric decision making. So this Bayes theorem or probability based or distribution based, what we have discussed right now, the theorems, all these will come under a kind of parametric decision making approach. Sorry, another slide I saw. So statistical decision making or parametric decision making, which involves probability density function or distribution function. That is what we were discussing, where one of the basic probability theorem used is Bayes theorem, right? That is what focused in different forms. So considering initially with the single feature, we were saying that how to define a Bayes theorem. Then slowly I modified the versions such a way that we discussed K-class problem. For K-class problem, if there are D number of features in the K-class problem, if there are features such as, once again, x1, x2, etc., multiple feature you have, and if all the features are said to be certain nature, maybe continuous or discrete, in that case, how to define this theorem? That is what we were discussing. So if you consider a case of problem where we have x as discrete, if there is a K-class problem, we know that how to define posterior probability, P of Ci given, say, x. This is a posterior probability. This is a prior probability, and you'll be relating with class condition probability. Also in the denominator, you have a term j is equal to 1 to k, P of Cj. So remember that this K is the number of classes. If it is 2, there will be 2 important terms in the denominator, right? So on. When there is 3, there will be 3 terms. But this is a form for when X is discrete. Maybe X may be a single feature you may be seen, extracted sometime. In that you can write a small letter here. And whenever discrete, this variable could be described with probability density function. So try to indicate this as a capital letter. Okay. Class condition probability, I wrote capital P here to indicate this class density function. Actually, the class condition probability here is also referred as likelihood sometime. Okay. So generally explains that the characteristic of the class or nature of the class, right? So with respect to one of the class that is denoted here as a given class, Ci. Probability of X given Ci, in generally you call it as a condition probability. We call here as class condition probability when X is discrete. We define this P capital. Remember that. So when X become continuous, say, suppose if case 2, if you take, if X is continuous, then you have to take another notation, like we explained why it is. We took a continuous variable in that delta X we took and we have derived this, right? So this is the relationship used for continuous variable. And when X is a continuous variable and the probability density function is given here as condition probability density function here. This is the second form we discussed, X as continuous variable and the K class problem. And the case 3 we discussed is, anybody can tell case 3? It is nothing but a K class problem with feature vector X as a feature vector x1 to xt. When X is a vector, we denoted here capital X. There also we considered continuous and discrete. If here x1, x2, etc. are discrete, then you represent this formula like this. This is for case 3, where X is a feature vector, where all x1 to xt features are discrete in nature. So probability distribution function we are talking here. Classes. Distribution function, probability distribution function here. So if X is continuous on the other side, the fourth form, what we discussed, when here X is continuous. So P of Ci given X posterior probability is same as the notation, where X is this vector, where each element is continuous. In that case, you replace this capital P by small p, indicating that it is a probability density function, okay, for continuous variable, fourth form. And finally, the fifth form what we discussed is when conditionally independent case is considered. When the features are independent, right? How you can try to explain the situation. There also you can describe for discrete and continuous. I'll just express for continuous. If such a way that for a given vector having all the elements x1, x2, etc. so on till xt, you can define posterior probability, and other probabilities are defined here such a way that P of x1 given Ci, P of x2 given Ci. Ci refers to ith class. If you consider second or third, then it will be C1 or C2. You can correspondingly represent it. P of xt given Ci. In the denominator also you can write like that. You can expand this. So this is a general form of Bayes theorem when features are independent within each class, right? That is how you can expand. So any clarification here? So once you are given some of the probabilities like prior probability or condition probabilities, then you may be able to calculate posterior probability. Once you calculate posterior probability, what is the benefit? Why it is called parametric approach? This statistical approach is called as parametric approach. Why? Anyone? It's called a Bayes theorem based classifier can be called as parametric classifier. Why? I'm not able to hear anyone's voice. Kanchan?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me why it is parametric approach? What is parameter used here?
I'm not sure, sir.
Anyone else?
Sir,
Can anyone?
Based on
theorem
certain.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But based on certain parameters, you're like estimating the likelihood of something belonging to a certain class.
Right. So here you will be trying to talk about variables associated with the probability density function or distribution, right? Especially mu, standard deviation, all these will come, right? So these are the values you derive from the known or training set with the known training set or labeled data, okay? Or already available data, if you know, then only you can find out prior probability. Probability for a class Ci. It's called prior probability. You can derive only if you know the class samples, right? So prior probability or probability based some of the parameter like mean, standard deviation, all these you can estimate from the existing data, right? Statistical approach it is. Or statistical probability distribution or density, which may help you to find out some of the parameter here. And those parameters are used during the decision making or decision science here, right? What are the decision rule used? For example, posterior probability based, if you are trying to define for a two-class problem, say we define like if probability of Ci given x is greater than 0.5, then I said that x can belong to one of the class Ci. Else it may belongs to another class. It may be Cj or some other one, Ci plus 1. Okay. Or if you take two class problem, I can mention specifically C1 or C2. If P of probability of C1 given x is greater than 0.5, then I can say that x belongs to C1. Else I can say that it belongs to class C2, where class name is C1 and C2, right? So this is a rule for classification. This is a kind of testing rule used for testing. See, in case of a classifier design, the first phase is always training, right? So in that process, you are trying to find out boundaries, a boundary equation here in Bayes theorem. So in some cases, we solved the equation and we found boundary values by equating to posterior probability. If you remember, I expanded posterior probability based condition for a normal class, and I just solved by some kind of quadratic equation, and I found the boundary values when two classes G bar are continuous. It is going to find certain boundary which defines certain region for class. Two class region could be defined using that. So it is a mode where you are working with the training. Say a classifier or pattern recognition system, you can work with the training phase. Say first phase is always training phase, or this mode of operation with the system, where you'll be trying to find out the region of interest here for class maybe C1 and class C2, which is the region of class. That is a training phase. Once you complete this, finding the region of a class, then the second important stage is testing, right? How you test it? That is using certain rules like this. Maybe you can use posterior value like this as shown. Given posterior value, if it is greater than 0.5 for a given pattern having certain x, then you say that that given pattern belongs to class C1, else belongs to class C2. Is it clear? Or you can even, if the calculated R is, can you define R as a ratio of what? Anyone? Harshita, you are here. What is R? Kenisha?
So I'm not very.
Huh? What is R basically? Likelihood ratio. R is a likelihood ratio we were defining earlier. It is a ratio of Shubham. Is a ratio of what? Likelihood ratio of what? Two posterior probabilities. If you know posterior probability or ratio of two posterior probability in a two-class problem, even it is possible to define a rule for classification, or testing rule can be defined. What is that testing rule here? If R is greater than 1, then you can say that the given pattern having feature X belongs to certain class C1. Else you can say that it belongs to class C2. So any clarification here?
No, sir.
This is what the two important modes in any classifier, especially Bayesian classifier when you use in a system. These are the two important phases or two important modes of operation you need to do with the system, like training mode as well as testing mode. Okay, that is the important first two important modes. So once you test, even there could be some time requirement that you can even study the performance of a classifier by understanding how much error it introduces, right? So there are some simple measures suggested here to estimate the error. Okay, one is by calculating how much probability error is by estimating the probability of error, or one more is just by counting. It is one of the simplest method given here. First one is called simple counting method. The simple counting method of estimation of error tries to tabulate all the testing data and tries to see how many are correctly classified, how many are classified wrongly, and it just counts how many wrong classification happened and expresses in the total number of possible classification there. Suppose in a given problem, if there are 4 samples and say that the true class of all 4 samples are known, then how to evaluate this error? That is what we are discussing now. And if you have calculated a particular probability, what is this probability, Shantanu? Abhishek? Abhishek? Aditi? What is this probability is called?
Posterior probability.
Which probability? I could not hear, sorry. Can you repeat it?
Posterior probability.
Yeah, it is a posterior probability. So is a type of condition probability, you call it here in the domain posterior probability. Yes. So the posterior probability is defined for class A here. It is nothing but a cap is shown just to indicate that it is the estimated value. Estimated posterior probability value for a given X is shown here as in the first column. Similarly, estimated probability value for class B for a given X is given in the second column. So it is a 3-class problem given here, and they have estimated posterior probabilities for class A and class B and class C here. When the 3-class samples are given, even the machine learning classifier is designed here, and the classifier is tested with some sample. Once you test with the sample, what happens we have to analyze here. But it is given that the true class of the 4 sample here are A, B, C. And the posterior probability is also tabulated here, calculated or estimated here for each of the type of sample. What is the posterior probability of A, right? So for a given X, what is the P of A given X for the first sample when you extract X, right? With respect to that X, you calculated P of A given X, P of B given X, P of C given X using Bayes theorem. So based on this, these 3 values are shown here, estimated values. Now, from the posterior probability, can anyone tell what is the, suppose if I define a rule for classification, what can be the rule for classification here? Because there are 3 classes. I cannot just use a rule saying that if P of A given X is greater than 0.5, this is not valid now because there are 3 classes.
It can be assumed that the class with the highest probability is the true class.
Yeah, so you can either do as a condition P of you can check it which is higher, whether this is higher or probability of B given X. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I think I wrongly wrote. Probability of A given X or probability of B given X or probability of C given X. Among these, which is the highest? That decides X belong to that class, maybe A or B or C, right? It is based on highest value of this probability. Now, to decide here in the given problem, can you tell me now what is the chance that given sample 1 having posterior probabilities here from your algorithm or from your classifier, suppose when you are testing here, test result or algorithm based result you can write here. What is the class your classifier will be defining based on this rule? What I already we have mentioned, no? The maximum value will try to help you to identify the belongingness of a or likeliness of a class. If you try to make use of that rule, can you tell me whether X belongs to A or B or C here?
B, sir.
It is B. We will denote here. Okay. Similarly, if you take the second sample and if you test your algorithm with these probabilities for a true class sample belonging to class A, when you estimate the probabilities, it is showing that it is 0.5, 0.1, 0.4 respectively each posterior probability. If you look into this and if you take a decision that it belongs to one of the class, then you will say that it belongs to A, right? Because it is maximum. Similarly, if you do for other samples like 3, what is the maximum value? The maximum value is this, so I will say that it belongs to A. And based on the last sample, the posterior value is highest here, so I will say that it belongs to C. That particular sample, I will say that it belongs to C. But if you see its true classes in the first column, the first sample is actually A, but you are saying with your rule that it is B. So actually it happened that there is a misclassification, right? Or you can say that classification result is wrong here, right? I'll just mark it. It is wrong, right? Our decision is wrong. Similarly, when you test second sample, actually its true label is A, but your algorithm says that it is A. That means it is fine. It is acceptable, right? You classified correctly. In the third case, third sample, you once again classified wrongly. The sample B, you are calling it as belonging to a group A or class A, which is wrong. And the fourth sample, actual class is C, and you are also saying through your algorithm that it is C. So it is also perfect. So when you test 4 sample here, 2 of the sample got misclassification, right? Whereas 2 of the classes maybe or sample 2 and sample 4 are classified rightly. Other 2 wrongly labeled as some other, right? So this indicates that there are 2 cases where the algorithm got failed, right? Or it has introduced error. So you count the error, how many number of error it has introduced, that you can count it. This is an error, this is another error, right? So count the number of error happening here, and based on that you can even define, you can estimate probability of error. So that is nothing but number of error occurred out of total testing, right? Total testing you did with 4. So how many error occurred? 2. So that is going to define your probability of error as 0.5. It is one of the simplest approach to define an error occurred or classifier performance just by estimating the classifier performance and measuring or estimating later as in the form of some factor here, right? Probability of error you are calling estimate some kind of error here with a simple procedure, simple counting procedure, right? How many error occurred by the algorithm to that of total testing done. So that defines here the quantity, right? Even there are other methods, we'll discuss that later, but this is one of the simplest approach here to quantify or estimate your particular error. So second method suggested here is model-based approach. So this also will be helpful to define the error. If you know error, you can even understand what is the performance, right? Yeah. That's why you are trying to quantify here error. So probability-based approach where even model-based estimate probability of error, you can quantify it. Say whenever there is a continuous classes like this, the class region may be defined with respect to thresholds, something like this. This may be class A region. This is class B region. Actually, the curve indicates that the class is varying like this. But when you define a threshold here, boundary here, optimal boundary here, that defines two regions, A and B. In that case, this tail region which you find here is said to be error region, error curve, error portion of the class A is shown here. So what is the contributing error region for class B? That is the tail region of class B. The class B is like this normal, but the tail region, when this is the threshold, this is the class B region. So this is the class B region you consider based on the threshold set. Okay. But the other region, tail region, will be later considered as error region. So suppose you want to find error here, you can integrate this tail region and you can find it. Okay. Integrate this region so that it will try to define an area under the curve. If you define that can help you to find the particular error value. Probability of error for class A, probability of error class B are correspondingly indicated. Left side hatching, right? This is the probability of error for class A, given class A. So this is the error for class B. By integrating, you can quantify or finding the area under the curve, right? To understand that, we have just given one example here. Two continuous classes are shown, but one is triangular in shape, one is uniform, or one is step or uniform type. So you can find that there is a class A, class B, right? So in this case, they have designed a decision boundary. Already decision boundary is given. What is the question? We'll see first. Find the probability of error. You have to calculate probability of error for a given pair of densities which are already defined with a certain decision boundary. So in the problem, they defined the boundary also here. The boundary is arbitrarily chosen as 2.5. So when you have here A and there is a B here, right? The boundary is chosen here. In a given example, they have chosen it as 2.5. Suppose if the boundary is 2.5, now your question is, what is the probability of error, right? That you need to estimate. So for estimating that, you need to quantify the area under this hatched region. This is the probability of error for class A. And if you calculate the area under the curve for B in the hatched region, this gives you probability of error for class B. Then if you can add, that is the total error, you can say estimated error, you can say. So how to go ahead with that? Suppose you have class A, this side you can see it is a straight line like. So you can take it as 3 minus x since it is intercepting at 3. So when you integrate this from this point to this point, right, you will get that is 2.5 to 3. When you integrate, you can calculate what is probability of error for a given class A, right? by integrating 2.5 to 3, a straight line 3 minus x, right? So you can find that by integrating this region or finding the area under the curve here, right? You can define the error here for class A. Similarly, for the class B, it is nothing but a small rectangle. If you see, it is one side, it is the 0.5 here, and this side it is 0.25. If you multiply these two edges, you can get area of this small rectangle, right? That is the error region. So which is nothing but 0.25 into 0.5. So that is how you can calculate error for class B there, probability of for a class B, it can be 0.25 into 0.5. Anyway, if you total it, you will get total error. Okay. Any question there? Even we will discuss later some other performance parameters in the later section of our discussion when we are discussing some applications. Any question here?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all with the probability theory based theorem. There are some exercises I have just mentioned earlier. You can just try them. If any queries or any clarification you have, you can ask in the next class or anytime. Okay. Next, we will start with another concept here. How we can have even a non-parametric type of classifiers or some kind of. Yeah, somebody is talking something.
Sir, I just wanted to ask if this is the next chapter.
Yeah, next chapter. Yeah. So before that, I just want to note down one's attendance. Okay. Please unmute and answer when I call your names. So Rishiraj, are you available, Rishiraj? Ravindra Reddy? Safwan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gaurav? Fatima? Sindesh? Shreya? Kanchan?
Present.
Emmanuel? Anushka?
Present, sir.
Anupama?
Yes, sir.
Sushmita?
Yes, sir.
Aditya? Mansi? Kenisha?
Present, sir.
Pranav?
Yes, sir.
Ankita?
Present, sir.
Arshita? Malaika?
Present, sir.
Ananya?
Yes, sir.
Shubham? Bharat? Ishan?
Yes, sir.
Ishan, right?
Yes, sir. Ishan.
Anusha?
Yes, sir.
Tezraj? Sai Vishwanath?
Yes, sir.
Sai Janavi? Aishwarya?
Present, sir.
Who is Aishwarya?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shantanu? Mithila? Kiran? Oh, sorry, he's not coming, huh? Pratik? Pratik is here. Nikita? Labdi Chopra?
Present, sir.
Meghna? Pillai? Gopal Pillai? Shreyas? Yeah. Shreyan, right? Yeah. Chandan?
Yes, sir.
Pranati? Pranati is here. Adarsh? Mitali?
Yes, sir.
Rahul? Kareem? Abdul Kareem?
Yes, sir.
Aziz?
Yes, sir.
Shirayu?
Present, sir.
Ashna Mutappa? Punyashreya?
Yes, sir.
Lakshya?
Sir.
Priyesh?
Yes, sir.
Aditi? Abhishek?
Present, sir.
Vaishnavi? Sriharsha?
Sir.
Who is Sriharsha, right?
Yes, sir. Zalika.
Yeah. Shika Jain? I think I forgot to ask Varun. Varun is here? Not there. And each one, you are requested to put your photo in the, like how I have put my photo, right? So before next class, you update every team, okay? When you are joining, especially my team, you update with your photo. You are getting my point. You have your photo, right? So that photo you can edit in that circle where it should come. Like Shreyan has done it. I have done it. Only if you have displayed the images here. Some have put their own some new images. No, don't put other images. Put your photo. Okay. Abhishek has put something else. Abhishek, you're getting my point, Abhishek?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because of pandemic, otherwise we'll forget our. Okay, you better put all of you put your identity there. Okay. So because we are not keeping camera on because of channel will get loaded, right? So at least you put your photo there. Okay. So by next class, I'm expecting all of you to please do that. Okay. Kindly cooperate by updating that. Any normal photo which you captured by your mobile also fine, but it should be a decent photo. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah, tell me, Anjan.
yes, some people have been having connectivity issues and mic problems, so they've sent their attendance on the chats. They've asked me to ask you to check.
Yeah. So who are having problem? End of the class, they can try and they can tell me. Otherwise, they can send an email later. I will check that. Okay. Or they can call
Sure.
me.
So I was present, so my Wi-Fi had dropped, Aditya.
Okay, at the end of the class, you can remind me, okay?
Okay, sir.
End of the class, I will just note it. Now we'll go ahead with the other topic, okay? So whoever not able to tell in the during the discussion, you can just remind me at the end of the class, okay? So is what I was telling, have you clear about? You need to just edit your photo just by clicking on that, okay? You have to just upload your photo there.
Yes, sir.
Your passport photo, no? From that only you can use, or whatever the photo, but decent photo. Is it clear? It is not photo of some mouse or some balloon or something else, okay? From electronic device, no. It is your identity you have to put here, okay? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now I will go with one more chapter. If there is no question on Bayes theorem, I will go with another non-parametric technique as an example. So even I was talking earlier, kind of unsupervised technique. It's an example for that. Say clustering analysis or cluster method. Okay. Here we just try to focus on a cluster or a group. We call here as a cluster. So already we called a class, right? We were defining as a class. What is class? Any one of you? Shubham was absent today. I could not hear when he was answering. Shubham? Okay, Sai Vishwanath, you are present, right? Sai Vishwanath. Sai Vishwanath?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So can you redefine what is class? We were defining multiple times earlier. Can you tell me what is class? Class is? What is the definition for class? I'm not able to hear from you. Anupama?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is class?
Class is basically just a category, sir, in a given set.
Yeah, it is a group or it is a category, right? So now that class you can refer in this particular concept as cluster. Okay. It is an alternate name, you can say, right? Yes. So now you will be trying to look for a group here or a class here. Once again, cluster means. So clustering is a procedure where you'll be trying to define a cluster. Okay. It is a process of finding cluster, right? That process you call it as clustering, and that group you call it as a cluster. There could be multiple clusters having some samples. That is why clusters. How to find a cluster? There are different algorithms. Some unsupervised algorithm, you can use it. What is cluster? Basically, it is like a class only. There is no much difference. It's you can say that it is a group once again. The process of finding a group may be referred as here clustering, the procedure, right? And in that motivation of doing that, you may have to discover the class, or you may have to identify the region of interest in the space. That you call it class discovery on the other side. So when this kind of situation arises for us, say till last class onwards, till last class we were discussing about various Bayes theorem and probability theory, etc. Right? Probability based approach for classification, where I just mentioned that it is a statistical approach or it is a parametric approach. And we even understand that there are a lot of training data may be known in advance, and based on that we calculate some prior probability and class condition probability definition, all this. So it is with the training data set, right? So where you have some training data set or where you have some prior knowledge, those problems, yes, with the distribution or density, you can try to use certain rule for classification, probability based rule. But whenever, suppose you are trying to analyze some signal from the space, or you are trying to analyze some problem where you don't have prior data collected or prior information like prior probability you don't have, okay, or nature of the class also not well defined in advance, then what you can do? Then you can think about an alternate approach where you can just try to group them based on their similarities rather than their prior knowledge. Whenever there is a data coming or whenever there is a pattern coming, you just see the similarity between them. Based on similarity between the patterns, you try to group them. One of the simplest example is if you take animal, no? How you categorize a dog and a cat, you may be knowing. Given dog and cat, you immediately separate them to the group, either cat group or dog group, right? How you do that, you know, you will find the similarity, right? And you just make as a group. Manually, how you separate your pencil and pen, you know. In a similar way, here also you can do it in a particular systematic approach using certain concept, right? Where mathematically you may have to derive some kind of requirement, mathematical requirement there. So, but once you are able to do that, the one number of samples in a single group, you can call it as a cluster. For doing this, you have various algorithms. In the domain, we have various agglomerative algorithms, which are referred as a bottom-up approaches. Okay, we'll discuss what is that. There are different types of algorithms here. And once again, a group of algorithms comes under top-down approach. What are these? We'll discuss about. This also we'll discuss about in the later stage. So I'll be going to talk about clustering, and I'll be talking about some procedure to make cluster. Okay. But in generally, you understand what is clustering. It is nothing but simple grouping procedure. As I have mentioned, a animal like this. Some car is given here, right? How you separate into two groups? It depends on you. What made you to group it? That is based on that, the similarity factor you may be thinking, no? Maybe sometime it is some factor. So based on what factor it is grouped here? Can anyone suggest me? Can you suggest? Pratik? Pratik? You can see there are two groups here. Here one group, single group. So this group is divided into two, right? So what are the groups here?
So blue versus non-blue.
So I think Ankita told, right?
Yes, sir.
It is blue versus non-blue. Any other answer?
Based on the model of the car.
Based on the model. Okay, any other answer?
In this particular picture, two of them are facing the left and two face the right.
Some are okay, the vehicle towards left, right? Versus vehicle towards right. That is what you are telling, right? Yeah. Next, anything else?
capacity, seating capacity.
Okay, seating capacity. Any other parameter? Gaurav? Anusha? Aishwarya? Aziz?
Features,
Any other
inbuilt features.
inbuilt features? Okay, so on you can list it. But any one of them can help you to make two groups, like branching, so that two can be separated. That is some feature you consider, and based on that you try to make them as two separate groups. Say, what I thought is it is a hatchback, and I think it is a SUV. The other side. No, it is a hatchback, right? One is hatchback and one is correct. Anyway, any kind of feature like blue colored, non-blue colored, or left. See, it is your perception with respect to this pattern, which is right. What you said is right. Maybe the power, maybe the reason, or maybe the shape may be the reason. So you think in this case some parameter or some kind of feature, right? It's not a parametric approach. You consider as a feature, as a variable, right? So this variable, with respect to that, you try to group them. It could be anything, either hatchback or not, or SUV or not, anything. A long car or like 5 feet above cars, something, anything, it is left to you. So which can help you to make certain grouping, right? That measure as whatever you decided is a measure. With respect to that measure, you will be comparing, right? And you will be grouping. And you are generating some group. Once again, you made two more subgroup. Maybe if you consider blue color, here you may be talking about dark blue and light blue. Once again, here it is non-blue, but still there you may have to explore something for the class. So this procedure of branching could go till you end with a single sample, a single pattern. That means that you can go with a single cluster here. To two clusters. These are subclusters of this cluster. Even it is possible to have few more subclusters. You can do this kind of branching till you end with single sample or your object, which is nothing but your pattern, right? So you can do some kind of subgrouping, right? So that is possible. So it is called one-sided, one approach. Okay. On the other side, if I interpret this tree on the reverse direction, say this is pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4. Even I can take a feature, maybe color, and I can even think that similar colored one, I will group it. So considering these two, I will just try to group it. And I can even think here some concept and I can group it. And even consider later, because of similar characteristic, they are called car, right? You can group as a class called car. So this is in the reverse direction. It's called bottom up. The earlier one we have seen like this is top to bottom. So it is possible to group or subgroup the whole available samples in two directions. That is what you understand here generally, right? With respect to certain feature. So that helps us to build hierarchical classes or hierarchical clusters. If you consider this is a class, you can understand that this cluster can have, if this is the cluster, you can understand that this cluster could be divided into two clusters, or you understand that these two clusters are part of this cluster. That means cluster and subcluster, or few more smaller clusters you can derive, right? So it is a process where you can get hierarchical clusters, a process of clustering you find in some problem. So why it is required? It is just to put similar patterns together or similar samples together. It is also helping you to do some classification sometime, like it is helping you to do some kind of grouping, or it is helpful for you to make a cluster here, right? Is it clear generally? Now let us go to a type of problem where we are talking with the representation of pattern as a dot. It's a pattern, right? All these are some patterns distributed in this feature space. When x1, x2 are two features, and all these dots represents each pattern. See, class discovery is a procedure where you will be trying to find out the similar patterns together, like this, using certain algorithm. Maybe k-means algorithm is one model, or algorithm is a technique which help you to find out similar samples. But once you are not done that, all these samples are just distributed in the sample space. That is what you can see. They are just distributed in the whole space. Even that can be considered a single cluster. But whether the single cluster is useful for anything? Yeah, it is just understanding level useful. Yes, it may be belonging to certain signal captured from a certain machine, say ECG machine. Based on that, say, you can say that these all dots are representing the ECG samples. Based on x1 and x2 of ECG, you have like QRS complex length and say P length as two features. If you have put all these dots on its feature space, because each point means it is nothing but x1, x2, right? Each point is x1, x2, nothing but two features. So with respect to two features, now you have presented here all the samples. That means if there are ECG signal, some 50 ECGs captured from 50 people, each ECG can be represented as a dot here. If there are some category which is normal, they come together with respect to whatever the feature you have extracted. Based on that, it may come together like this. Or if there is some abnormal, it may come together. Within the abnormal, there can be bradycardia, tachycardia. So even there could be two classes, right? So a class can have subclass, and subclass can have even smaller classes. Multiple class problem also can be there. Sometimes you may have to say that a tumor having or some kind of medium, low, high, you may have to indicate as tree group. You can even do that. So what is the input is unknown here in this given example. Is just an example I took here just to talk about a space feature space x1 and x2. Within the space, I represented all the patterns. So once I have distributed patterns here. What is class discovery? Class discovery is nothing but a concept where with the similar nature we will be trying to group, or similarity. With respect to x1 and x2, you have to look similarity and you have to group it. For that, there are many algorithms which have come up. Those algorithms we can apply it. But before applying, you need to understand what is the similarity measure here. So using a similarity measure, you'll be trying to group. I'll just give you a blunt question now. You can just answer with your knowledge. The points are closer, or say this is point 1 or pattern 1, pattern 2 and pattern 3. Now if you see here P1, P2, P3, which are the two which are very closest? Anybody can answer, unmuted.
P1 and P2.
Yeah, obviously you can see visually that P1, P2 are very closer, right? See, actually with mathematically or with the realization of distance you are talking now, as P1, P2 are closer than P3, right? Even when you take x1, x2 here in this space, if you really extract their features, maybe the durations of certain ECG or something, some feature I said, right? When you take these three patterns, this is far away in the similarity. That is what you find in the value also, right? Because each point has x1, x2. Right? So these x1, x2 of each point are different, but you find that the difference between the 2 points here is lesser. That is by looking into the diagram only you can say, right? So taking two feature of appropriate type, taking a distance between 2 points, it is a good idea that you can group them, right? That is why they thought that why can't we go with some kind of grouping where some kind of distance, mathematical distance like Euclidean distance you heard about, right? So between the points you have a distance called Euclidean distance, right? So once you represent your pattern, you can use some distance measure between these points. Those distance measure can help you to check your similarity between the patterns. Or distance between 2 points is less means it is more similar. That means these two are more similar. That is the meaning. That indicates that when you are comparing P1, P2 and P3, P1 and P2 are more similar than P3. If you understand, you can group P1 and P2 together, but P3 cannot be grouped. Or if you find that some other point is very close to that, you can even group that with that, right? Like that, if you apply some algorithm, you may be able to find closer points together. That is nothing but finding the group. And later even you can give appropriate label to this. Maybe it is certain label, right? Class 1. Right now I'll just write class 1. You can derive a label to that, understanding the problem domain. Appropriately you can give a name. ECG class normal, ECG abnormal 1, abnormal 2, so on. Okay, it is just an example. Once you group, you may find similar samples together. All these can be called as similar samples. Maybe this is another cluster. Within that, it will have similar samples. If you divide this based on certain other concept as 2 more clusters, then within this smaller cluster you have similar samples, and within this smaller sample even you may have similar samples. That is how we explore this problem. So when I don't write anything, this x1, x2 space, I call it as a feature space. The whole space here. Then I planned an algorithm and I found similar group together. That is what I'm trying to do, is a dividing this region, right? You can see this is a region 1, region 2, or I'm making this as another region, region 3. In a way, I just explore this region for a class and I just call it as certain region or cluster here. So discovering a group of samples together which are having similar property or similar attribute or characteristic. Similar attribute, or based on attribute, you may have to check which are similar. Okay. Or based on certain distance measure here, you have to check which are closer. That help you to find a cluster. You got a hint what is the idea behind this whole process. It is just you may have to find out a distance between 2 points. So distance between 2 points is considered as similarity. What type of distance? Similarity measure could be a Euclidean distance. Or even some other city block distance. So many other distances are defined in mathematics between 2 points. Any one of the distances can be used here. So let us explore the algorithms here. So before that, the same animal example I'll just take. So why it is hierarchical approach? So what we are trying to do, hierarchical groups. What we are trying to do with the hierarchical groups here later, right? To understand that tree diagram, I just gave the example given the text once again here, because here we say we are trying to do clustering in various hierarchy, like or a cluster is said to be a nested, or it is said to be having another small cluster within that. So the example, either you can start from bottom or you can start from top. Okay, if you start from the root of this or one of the side where you have all the pattern, say 5 samples are given, which are nothing but 5 animals here. If you start from here, it's called bottom-up approach. So what you are trying to do in the bottom-up approach is all the bottom-up procedure of clustering will follow certain concept. They themselves as a small cluster. Okay, each sample can be considered with the single sample can be considered as a smallest unit, smallest cluster in this concept of bottom-up. Later, what you are trying to do is you find a similar cluster and merge it together and make it bigger. So, and you move towards a single cluster on the top. It is called bottom-up procedure. A very simple technique, but can even help you to do segmentation procedure. You know, if you can group your pixels together, even you can identify region in the image as certain region of tumor, region for a platelet, all this. You can detect an object here with this simple clustering procedure. Okay, it is very powerful technique, even though it looks very simple. Okay. So please understand that there is a technique called bottom up, or there are a group of algorithms which come under that. We are discussing later some of them. So you start from here with single samples as a cluster and you proceed in that bottom up procedures. But it's said to be hierarchical clustering approach. Why? So when you start with single clusters, these clusters are indicated with a set here. You can see I just indicated a set with 1, saying that this is a cluster having single sample. The sample number is 1. Is it clear? what is this represents. So now when I start this position here, I understand that at the 0th level, they showed vertically levels. At the 0th level, if you see, you have totally 5 samples. And each sample is within each cluster. Okay, so that is what indicated here at 0 level. Now you may have to find out similarity between these patterns with respect to certain feature, or in the space you may have to find out very similar to animals here once you represent as a point with respect to that feature. Then you can combine them. So in a general example, what I have done is, it is a dog and cat problem, where a feature we have not bothered much, visual features are considered. Looking into different types of animal now here. Actually, there are 3 dogs here. This is dog, this is dog, this is also dog, whereas this is cat. Okay. So what they are doing, they find similarity between dogs and cats and they go on combine. In this procedure, the best matching 2 animal you combine. So they've combined here 2 animals here, which are best matching. And they made it as a single group. So now once you make those 2 are in a single group, which are the best matching, then the total number of groups are coming down, right? Initially you had here at level 0, 5 groups or 5 clusters. At level 1, when you see here, when you group 2 best matching 2 animals, you will get 4 clusters, where 1 cluster has 2 animals, rest are having single animal, right? This procedure, if you continue it, later once again find which are 2 most similar. You may find these 2 are very similar with respect to certain feature. So you combine them. So now we'll be having 3 clusters. Later 2 clusters. Later, because of animal property, you can even merge them as a single group. So if you go in this direction, finally, if you put as an animal, all these are in a single set. Single cluster. So this is a concept which you talk from bottom up. What is feature, how to do it, that we'll discuss with respect to algorithm. But in a general problem, how it is taken up, or how it is people are dealing with, right? That you please understand the conceptual approach in the bottom up. That is like this. You started with 0 level 5 sets, then combined very 2 similar. So on you continue in each level so that finally you end with single set. That is bottom up. Whereas if you go with the other set, like single set towards dividing the set into multiple set, a single cluster can be divided into 2 clusters, or it can be further divided into 3 clusters. So on you can divide it every time. So the most possible division is this. So if you go with the division method, like from single animal set, if you go and divide it, dogs, cats, so on, finally you get 5 clusters, right? In this direction also. But what is happening here is, if you understand, beyond this you cannot divide this. This is the last level. Correct? With single set, single sample having a sample set, or this cluster with single sample will be the which is terminating node of your tree. So it is nothing but some tree diagram you can represent here in this concept. So and you can so on represent various clusters at hierarchy, and you can even relate and you can even describe them. Okay, this is an idea behind hierarchical clustering. So we'll understand some more details of similarity, then we'll take up some algorithm. I just mentioned a similarity measure could be some distance. I think all of you heard about Euclidean distance, right? It is defined something like this, between 2 points. There is a point here, x1, x2, y1, another point, x2, y2, right? When the features are x, y taken here, say for P1, it is x1, y1, P2, it is x2, y2. The distance between these 2 points, you can define under the square root using, right, Euclidean distance concept, x1 minus x2, y1 minus y2, respectively whole square, right? I think you have studied this formula, right? Yes or no? Bharat? Oh, Bharat is absent today. Ishan? Ishan? Anushka?
Yes, sir.
Have you studied the Euclidean distance earlier? Somewhere in mathematics or any subject? Euclidean distance formula you may be studied, right? Somewhere. This formula have you seen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It is a very simple relation. I think this you understood, right? How to calculate Euclidean distance between 2 points. So what is the importance of this distance? That is what you need to understand. That's all. When there are 2 clusters, or when there is a space, when there are points, there could be 2 type of distance. You can, if you have already defined a cluster, you can call this as a intercluster distance between these 2 points. Or sorry, this is a intercluster distance. This is intracluster, right? Intracluster distance within the cluster. If you have not defined any cluster, if it is just on a space like this, various points, then even you can define distance between each point to another point, right? Many distances can be defined here. When there are multiple points. Between each point like this, you can find a distance. All of you agree with that, right? Now, the idea behind the whole concept is finding the distance as Euclidean distance or some other measure as a similarity measure, and based on this distance as a parameter of similarity, how you can do the grouping. That is what a algorithm going to address. So once you group, even you can call some distance as intercluster distance between the 2 clusters, or you can even call some sample distance within the cluster as intracluster distance, right? But when you see some samples within each cluster, they may be very closely distributed here. Okay, within the region of interest, there may be. That is why they will be labeled with certain class name or cluster name. This is a two feature based approach shown here, but this could be even extended to 3 features. If there are 3 features, say X, Y, and Z, that the third one more Z, if you take X, Y, and Z. How you can expand this equation? Any one of you? Jahnavi? This Euclidean distance will have another term, right? Jahnavi, are you online?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is another term you need to add when there is 3 variables?
Sir,
How?
Z1 minus Z2 whole square.
Yeah. So what you understand, the theoretical background, is when you add Z1 and here Z2. Please understand that X1, X2, there will be one more X2 here. And say, sorry, this is Y, right, in this problem. When there is X, Y, Z, three variables, you understand that it is a three variable space you are considering. Each point is nothing but X, Y, Z. Correct? Now, is it right now, Jahnavi? Jahnavi?
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah. No, you have to realize the point differently, right? X1, X2, Z1. Now, is it right what you are talking here? Is it right or some correction is needed here?
Yes, sir. X1, Y1, Z1, X2, Y2, and Z2.
So there are three variables. So all the three variables with respect to that you have to write X1 minus X2. That's what you are trying to say here. See, if you want to generalize, see, I'll just show you one. See, these were the generalized one. To avoid the confusion, I'll just go to generalized one. See, this is nothing but capital A, okay? Sorry, not bold A, bold letter A, or you can just make it as capital to avoid confusion. Suppose there are 2 points now. Now let us take as 2 points A and B. If you want to generalize it, you can generalize like this under the square root. I is equal to 1 to n, bi minus ai whole square. So Euclidean distance for multiple variables you can define like this, where a is nothing but a vector consisting, say maybe it is b1, b2, sorry, a1, a2, etc. an. Suppose if it is the dimension of D features, you can take I is equal to 1 to D. Now, any other answer? If there are two features, there will be two terms. I is equal to 1, I is equal to 2 for that. If is equal to, if there are three features, you'll get three terms, right? Is it like that? Is it correct? Please understand, when there are two features, these are the terms. When there are three features, what happens? When A is equal to A1, A2, A3 in the same given example, you substitute and tell me. B is equal to B1, B2, B3. Is that? Say points are A, B. Yeah. Instead of X, Y, I took A1, A2, A3 here. Don't make any confusion. Yeah. You're getting point. We'll use this later. Yeah, this multi-dimension feature, when there is a D feature also, you can express a distance between 2 points. Okay, we'll use it later. No issue. Similarly, some other distance also there. When we are using it, I will define it. Maybe there is the absolute difference. How you can define? between 2 points A and B, it is nothing but absolute summation of absolute value. This will define when we are using it. Okay, just for your reading purpose, I just put a snapshot here. So let us take one of the algorithm, which in the next class. Okay, we will discuss in the next class some of the algorithm. So, but just 1 minute, you can just see here what is happening. Clustering means what is the, it is some repeated task we have to do on the given data, right? In a loop kind of thing, right? So that we can find a required group of samples together. So it is some iterative approaches or iterative kind of algorithms you find here. So you may have to do it multiple times, some operation of finding distance between sample, and you find some similar samples together. See, some kind of grouping you may have to do means repeatedly you have to check the distance and you may have to group them. The procedure is simple, but when you are going through some algorithm here, hierarchical algorithm, you may have to do some repeated steps of a simple procedure, okay, in an iterative fashion. So these are the algorithm what we have listed earlier may be called as some kind of iterative algorithms. So they will help you to generate some clusters. So agglomerative algorithms will try to generate some cluster from some simple concept where you are starting from just a simple single sample in a cluster and find a similar cluster and merge them. Then find similar cluster and merge them. This procedure you may continue till you end with single group. So it is called bottom-up procedure. Okay. On the other side, if you go in a reverse direction, you start with a single cluster and you divide this cluster into multiple groups. So on divide it till you end with each cluster having single cluster. That procedure you call as partitioning approach or top-down approach. There also you have some of the algorithm defined. Let us discuss that. So any clarification with respect to the discussion made? Anyway, algorithms will take up in the next class. Is it fine?
Sir, with respect to the different types of distances, will you also be covering when it's more appropriate to use a certain kind of distance?